There's a man on your street. You've seen him 100 times. He drives a gray sedan with a small dent in the rear door that's been there for years. He mows his own lawn. His jacket is older than your phone. Last week you saw him comparing prices on paper towels, and he borrowed a ladder from a neighbor instead of buying one. If I asked you to guess his net worth, you'd guess low. Everyone would. The dent, the lawn, the ladder, you're reading them as signs of struggle. They might be the opposite. Today, 10 signs someone is actually rich, even when everything visible says otherwise. By the end, you'll never read your own street the same way again. I'm Arthur. I worked an ordinary job for 30 years, retired at 52, and now I explain what nobody explained to me. Quick honest note, this channel uses AI tools for the voice and visuals, and nothing here is financial advice. Today is closer to bird watching. I'm going to teach you to spot a species that specifically evolved not to be spotted. 10 signs. And here's the loop to hold on to. 9 of them take years to become true. But sign number 10, the last one, is different. It's the one you can start faking tomorrow morning. And it's the only case I know where faking it literally makes it real. Stay for that one. First, you should know how I learned this species exists, because someone had to teach me too. When I was 34, broke and pretending otherwise, my neighbor 2 doors down was a man named Gene. Gene was in his 60s then, retired plumber, drove a pickup the color of weak coffee, wore the same canvas jacket for every season except deep summer. I liked Gene, but I'll be honest about what I thought. I thought he was a man who hadn't quite made it, coasting to the finish line on a pension and coupons. Then, one Saturday, the local paper ran a story. The community college had received a gift to fund its trade program. $300,000. Anonymous, except a reporter had dug up the donor's name. The ladder borrowing, coupon cutting, weak coffee pickup plumber 2 doors down. I spent the next 10 years learning everything Gene would teach me, and the first lesson was the one that reorganized my whole head. Wealth is what you don't see. The rich man in the movies is a costume. The real thing looks like Gene. Here are the 10 signs, and the tells that give them away. Sign 1. The car is reliable, unremarkable, and, most importantly, done. No payment, often driven 8, 10, 12 years. Here's the mechanism. A new car payment in America now runs $700 and change on average. The quietly rich looked at that number and saw what it actually is. The single largest destroyer of middle-class wealth purchased voluntarily on a machine that loses value every hour. So they opted out. Not because they can't afford the payment, because they can afford to see it clearly. The tell. It's not that the car is old. It's that the car is old and well-maintained. Fresh tires on a 10-year-old sedan. Oil changes on schedule. That combination, zero vanity, total stewardship, is almost impossible to fake, friend. Struggle neglects. Wealth maintains. Sign 2. Ask them anything about their own money, and the answer arrives instantly, precisely, without drama. What do you spend a month? About $5,100. What's the mortgage rate? 3.6, 11 years left. Most people, including most high earners, answer money questions with weather reports. Ugh, don't ask. Vagueness. The quietly rich answer like you asked their height. Because here's the thing nobody says out loud. Avoiding your numbers doesn't protect you from them. It just means the numbers operate you instead of the other way around. Attention is the actual first investment. Everything Gene ever taught me started with this. The tell, no flinch. The topic of money produces zero visible discomfort. It's a tool in their hand, not a wound under a bandage. Sign 3. Listen to what they treat as scarce. Regular people guard money and spend time like it's infinite. 2 hours in a checkout line to save $8. The quietly rich run it exactly backwards. They'll pay to skip, delegate, simplify, but ask for a Tuesday of their time and watch them get stingy like a miser at a toll booth. Somewhere along the way, they did the arithmetic most people never do. Money regenerates, hours don't. Every dollar was always a stored piece of somebody's day. Once you see that, wasting time feels like burning cash, and the spending pattern flips. The tell, the words, "That's not worth my time," said about something cheap by a person in a 12-year-old jacket. That sentence is a net worth statement. Sign 4. Look at their things closely. The boots, the coat, the kitchen knife, the hand tools. Excellent, durable, and carrying no visible brand at all. The performing class buys logos because a logo's actual product is what other people think. The quietly rich buy the thing itself. They'll pay triple for boots that last 15 years and walk right past the ones that advertise. Gene called it buying once. His weak coffee pickup had 240,000 miles and a rebuilt engine he'd paid for happily. "Cheapest truck I ever owned," he said. "I bought it once." The tell, old things in excellent condition. The jacket is 9 years old and the zipper works perfectly. Cheap stuff doesn't survive 9 years, and rich-looking stuff gets replaced in 2. Quiet wealth keeps. Sign 5, and this one's audible. In conversation, the quietly rich are interrogators, not broadcasters. The financially insecure narrate their wins, the deal, the trip, the guy they know. It's not vanity exactly, it's advertising, run by the part of the brain that needs the room's approval to feel safe. The quietly rich left that economy entirely. Nothing to prove buys a lot of silence, so they ask, "What do you do? How does that work? What would you do differently?" And notice, that's also how they got rich. Questions are how information flows toward you. Announcements are how it flows away. The tell. You leave the conversation having talked about yourself the whole time, feeling great, knowing nothing about them. That was not an accident. Sign 6. Watch their pace. The quietly rich move through life like a man walking a dog on a Sunday. No rush, no panic, decisions made slowly and changed rarely. Urgency, friend, is nearly always the sound of thin margins. Thin money margins, thin time margins, thin emotional margins. When one flat tire can cascade into catastrophe, everything feels like an emergency because everything is one. Wealth, real wealth, is margin. And margin sounds like, "Let me think about it and call you Thursday." That calm is also armor. Every scam, every bad deal, every overpriced impulse depends on you deciding fast. The unhurried are unrobbable. The tell, they miss opportunities constantly, the hot stock, the deadline deal, and visibly do not care. Missing the bus is only scary when you don't own your schedule. Sign 7. If you could see their actual spending, the big numbers would be things that don't photograph. Index funds, the kid's college account, insurance done properly, the retirement accounts, maxed quietly every January. Meanwhile, the visible life, the dinners, the clothes, the car, is modest, which produces the optical illusion this whole video is about. From the outside, spending looks small, so we assume the means are small. But the money isn't absent. It's underground, compounding in the dark, exactly where the neighbor's opinions can't tax it. Gene put it in one sentence I've repeated for 20 years. Rich people's money is where you can't see it. Broke people's money is where you can. The tell, honestly? The absence of tells. When a solid income produces no visible lifestyle, the money is going somewhere. And that somewhere is usually the whole story. Sign 8, and it surprises everyone. Talk investments with the quietly rich and they have nothing exciting to say. No crypto conviction, no hot stock, no angle. Their whole system fits in a sentence. Spend less than we make. Invest the difference in boring things, don't touch it. And they say it almost apologetically, like they're confessing to being dull. Compare that to the guy at the barbecue with 17 exciting positions and a phone full of charts. Excitement in investing is almost always compensation. For lack of a plan, lack of margin, or a need for the money to also be entertainment. The rich already won. They don't need the casino's lights. It's the patience, not the pics. Past performance guarantees nothing but temperament, friend, compounds like nothing else. The tell, you ask what they invest in, and their complete answer is shorter than this sentence, and they change the subject without a flicker of anxiety. Sign 9. They give real amounts, and you will almost never find out. The tip that's embarrassingly large, folded so no one sees. The niece's tuition gap handled with a condition of silence. $300,000 to a trade program, anonymous until a reporter got nosy. Performative generosity needs an audience because the audience is the product being purchased. Quiet generosity is what money looks like when it has fully finished proving things. The last vanity to die, and the surest sign the war is over. Scarcity hoards, insecurity displays, abundance just quietly pays for the ladder truck. The tell, you find out years later, sideways, from someone else, and when you bring it up, they're annoyed you know. Pause. Quick test before the last sign. Think of the wealthiest looking person you know. The cars, the trips, the kitchen from a magazine. Now count honestly. Of the 9 signs so far, how many do they show? Now think of someone who shows 6 or more of these signs. Anyone come to mind? A relative everyone calls cheap? A coworker who retired weirdly early? A gene? That flip you just felt. That's the illusion dissolving. Now the sign I promised you. The one you can steal. Sign 10. Ask the quietly rich what they do with their paycheck, and you'll hear some version of the same machine. The money moves the day it arrives. Automatically. Investments first, savings first, obligations first. And what remains is what gets lived on. They don't save what's left after spending. They spend what's left after saving. That's it. That's the sign. And here's why it's the one that matters most. It's the only sign on this list that is a cause, not an effect. The boring car, the calm, the invisible money, those are downstream. This is upstream. This is the pump. And it requires no wealth to begin. None. Tomorrow morning, anyone, any income, any age, any amount of catching up to do, can set one automatic transfer for the day after payday. $50, $20. The amount is almost beside the point at the start. The plumbing is the point. You will be, mechanically speaking, doing the exact thing the millionaires on this list do, faking it. And this is the only place I know where the fake and the real are the same act. Do it long enough and one day you notice the other 9 signs quietly moved in while you weren't watching. Gene's version, the day he finally walked me through it at his kitchen table. Pay the old man first. I asked, what old man? He said, you dummy, the one who shows up whether you fund him or not. Gene died 9 years ago, 81, in the house he'd owned for 40 years. The weak coffee pickup was in the driveway. I checked. The estate, I heard sideways of course, the way you learn everything about men like Gene, was a little north of $4 million. A plumber, paper towels on sale. And I think about this a lot. Every single day of those 40 years, some neighbor looked at Gene and felt quietly superior. The dent, the jacket, the coupons. He let them. It cost him nothing, and margin was worth more to him than applause. Nobody claps when you do this right. That's how you know it's working. So, the comments. Tell me about your Gene. The relative everyone called cheap, the coworker who retired at 55 and nobody could figure out how. I'd bet this porch that most of you have one, and I'd love to meet them. Gene's napkin, the one that turned my fantasy into a number. I've already walked through it line by line in the video about how much you need to never work again. If sign 10 got under your skin, start there. Take care of your money. It's quietly taking care of you.